Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive tactical mystery at the absolute heart of modern soccer's evolution. If you're a fan who closely follows tactical trends and the shifting geometry of the beautiful game, you've probably felt a subtle yet truly seismic shift over the last few years in how matches are actually controlled. We're looking at the sudden disappearance of a very specific, beloved archetype on the pitch and the explosive rise of a completely new one that has just taken its place. It's a fundamental change in the sport's DNA, and we're going to figure out exactly how it happened. The pure playmaker is dead. Just let that sink in for a second, right? For purists of the sport, for those of us who grew up watching the game over the last few decades, a sentence like that feels incredibly heavy. It kind of feels like the end of a deeply romantic era. We're talking about a lost art here, a foundational piece of how soccer used to be played, conceptualized, and mastered at the absolute highest levels of competition. It's a kind of statement that makes you question everything you thought you knew about how a midfield is even supposed to function. To really understand what we've lost, we've got to clearly define the victim of our tactical mystery, the dictator. And hey, just to be absolutely clear here, we're talking strictly about the soccer pitch tempo setter. We're definitely not talking about some geopolitical figure with a penchant for long speeches and military parades. In soccer tactics, the dictator is that classic pure playmaker. It's the player who stands right in the middle of the park and dictates the tempo, the rhythm, and the entire flow of the game, doing it almost entirely through the masterful art of passing. Everything this pitch dictator did was just incredibly methodical. They relied purely on their passing vision to unlock opposing defenses and dictate terms to the opposition. They'd receive the ball, hold it, carefully scan the entire field, and expertly control the rhythm of all 22 players on the pitch. It was like a slow, deliberate, beautiful waltz where one player acted as the grand conductor. And crucially, they rarely relied on ball carrying. They simply didn't need to run with the ball because their supreme intelligence and vision allowed them to let the ball do the running for them. But if they were so masterful, if they were so completely and utterly in control of the geometry of the pitch, what actually caused the death of the pure playmaker? How did a role so fundamental to the sport's deep history, a role celebrated by fans and players alike, just vanish from the tactical chalkboards of the world's elite managers? The core contrast that defines our era is pretty stark. It really comes down to a fundamental shift in the very definition of playmaking itself. The old reality was all about dominating through a static, overarching passing vision. It meant standing relatively still, pulling the strings from a designated pocket of space. But the new reality? It is entirely about dominating through dynamic ball carrying. The modern game collectively decided that relying solely on passing just wasn't enough to break down modern defenses anymore. Physical movement with the ball at your feet became the ultimate non-negotiable weapon. So why did dribblers replace them? Why did the brilliant managers and tacticians of the world uniformly decide to trade in their precise passing metronomes for aggressive ball-carrying mavericks? What exactly changed out there on the pitch that made running with the ball so infinitely more valuable than passing it? Enter the usurper, the dribbler. This is the modern playmaker, guys. They don't just sit back and pass. They break lines. They violently disrupt deeply entrenched defensive blocks. They create massive numerical advantages simply by carrying the ball directly and fearlessly at their opponent's feet. It is explosive, it is direct. Modern soccer's absolute reliance on dribbling has completely, fundamentally changed how space is exploited on the pitch. You don't delicately pass your way around the block anymore to find the perfect angle. You run straight through the heart of it. When you put these two tactical philosophies side by side, the difference is literally staggering. On one hand, you have our victim, the dictator, methodical, passing reliant, a tempo setter who demands absolute control, and on the other hand, the player who completely took their job, the dribbler, explosive, ball-carrying, a ruthless line breaker who thrives on chaos. You can literally feel the incredible difference in energy and intention just comparing the two mindsets. One wants to slow the game down and dissect it. The other wants to speed the game up and completely shatter it. Breaking down the exact mechanics of this shift reveals a complete tactical overhaul. The dictator's primary weapon was the pass, but the dribbler's primary weapon is the carry. The pace of the dictator was perfectly, beautifully controlled, whereas the dribbler is rapid, injecting sudden, terrifying speed directly into the heart of the attack. And consider their ultimate pitch impact. The dictator gave a team a sustained, predictable rhythm. The dribbler? They provide sudden, violent disruption to the opponent's defensive structure. And make no mistake, the modern game absolutely craves that disruption. Let's step through the actual crime scene of this tactical takeover. Step 1. Dictators rule the pitch, essentially unopposed in their dominance. Step 2. The game gets physically and structurally faster, giving birth to the modern high press. Modern soccer begins to demand quicker, line-breaking movement because honestly, passing around a high-intensity press is simply too risky now. Running straight through it? That becomes the ultimate cheat code. The dribbler became the specific antidote to the high press, which directly leads us to step 3. Dribblers completely, mercilessly replace the pure playmakers at the highest levels of the sport. We've experienced a rapid, defining evolution. We went from the past, the golden era of the pure passing playmaker, through a highly crucial transition period. In that transition, tacticians started to realize that extreme pace and coordinated high pressing were completely neutralizing static passers. And that lands us straight into a present era entirely defined by modern soccer's absolute reliance on direct dribbling. This wasn't just some temporary fad or a fleeting trend. It was a permanent structural evolution in how the sport is fundamentally played at the elite level. But why does all this matter to you today as a fan of the game? Well, if you're tuning into a match this weekend, keep these concepts in mind. This tactical shift completely redefines what it means to be a modern midfielder. It shifts the attacking focus heavily to ball carrying rather than purely distributing. It massively increases the sheer speed and verticality of attacks. Ultimately, it changes how we watch the game. So, this weekend, I want you to watch the midfield really closely. Notice exactly who breaks the defensive lines for your team. Are they passing perfectly through them, or are they picking up the ball and driving straight through the heart of the opposition? I guarantee you'll see a heavy reliance on the latter. So, the crucial takeaway really comes back to our very premise: the death of the pure playmaker. Why dribblers replace dictators. The modern game simply moves far too fast and presses far too hard to allow a single, static player to just stand in the center circle and dictate the tempo with long, raking passes. The game had to evolve out of necessity. Modern soccer's reliance on dribbling was born because the dribbler became the ultimate, indispensable weapon to shatter hyper-organized modern defensive systems. Which leaves us with one final, massive question to consider on our way out. Will the dictator ever return? Tactics in soccer are notoriously cyclical, right? They're constantly reacting to whatever the current dominant trend happens to be. So, will a brilliant new manager eventually figure out a tactical system that protects a static passer in this high-speed, high-press era? Or does the modern dribbler just reign supreme forever? Keep that exact question in mind next time you watch your favorite team take the pitch. Thanks for joining me on this explainer and enjoy the matches this weekend.